All right, welcome to Virtual Face-to-Face with President Bruce Jarrell. I'm Alex Mikowski, Executive Director of Media Relations. Probably no other aspect of American life in this time of COVID has engaged our creativity and our compassion more than the world of faith and worship. And here in Maryland on March 19th of last year, Governor Hogan issued a statewide order banning social gatherings of more than 10 people, effectively shuttering churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples all across the free state. Now, that was a Thursday, giving very little time for faith leaders to come up with a plan for Jummah, Friday prayers in mosques, Shabbat services Friday evening or Saturday morning in synagogues, and Sunday services in Christian churches. Many went online and had to overcome some educational hurdles with their congregations. Some organized drive-through services. One priest in Bowie, over in Prince George's County, at the Church of St. Edward the Confessor, even organized, that's right, you guessed it, drive-through confessional. And it was that way all around the world. Pope Francis delivered his Easter homily in an empty St. Peter's Basilica. The Archbishop of Canterbury did the same thing, but from his London apartment. And somehow the Imam of Philadelphia's huge Masjidullah Mosque with more than 1,000 congregants found a way to hold Friday prayers with 6 feet of social distance. The signs out front read, "Take your temperature before going to prayer," and if possible, try to avoid handshakes and hugs. But the work of the faithful and their importance to the community is much more than religious services and ceremonies. Faith organizations play a critical role in providing medical and social services and even food to the neediest in our communities. Over the last year, as the need has soared, so too have efforts to help in our area. Not far from UMB, for instance, First Mount Calvary Baptist Church turned its fellowship hall into a food pantry and fed more than 18,000 people between May and October. Volunteers at Govan's Presbyterian Church in North Baltimore prepare up to 100 hot meals to distribute outdoors every Sunday. And the Jewish Volunteer Connections Mitzvah Week at the end of December engaged more than 1,500 volunteers to provide for some 4,000 people in the Baltimore area. And there are plenty more wonderful examples like that. But now, at the end of this difficult year of changes, it looks like things are beginning to change back. This week, Governor Hogan announced that capacity limits for restaurants, bars, and yes, churches will be lifted as of 5 p.m. tomorrow. The Baltimore Sun editorial board called that decision incautious, uncoordinated, and unwise, citing the fact that fewer than 10% of Marylanders are fully vaccinated at this point. So it'll be up to faith leaders now to figure out, once again, how to best balance the spiritual and health concerns of their congregations. And joining Dr. Jarrell today are 4 Baltimore faith leaders. Rabbi Daniel Berg is from Beth Am Synagogue in historic Reservoir Hill. Reverend Dr. Phyllis Felton is from Madison Avenue Presbyterian Church in Druid Heights. Dr. Yassine Daoud is a lay leader and preacher in various Baltimore Muslim communities. And Bishop Bruce Lewandowski is Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Croix and Auxiliary Bishop of Baltimore. Welcome to you all. I want to be sure to tell everyone that this program is being recorded and will be posted on the UMB homepage, umaryland.edu. Later in the program, we'll take your questions and comments. Please post them in the chat area. Select Chat with Host and let me know what's on your mind. When the time comes, we'll call on you by name, so please listen for that. Now let me introduce our host, UMB President, Dr. Bruce Jarrell.
And welcome to all of you who are in the audience. I'm particularly thankful to have our participants today, a very distinguished group, and I feel in all of this group. We're having 4 discussants today, so we'll try to get a view from the different faiths to get a broad cross-section of how we're going to be dealing with COVID in the past, the present, and the future. And so what I'll do is start off with a question and ask each of the 4 to address it and tell us how they're dealing with this particular problem. And I'd like to start out for our 4 panelists to let them know that I'm a surgeon. I have taken care of seriously ill patients my entire career, and you might guess it has meant close contact, surgery, a hand on the shoulder, a hug. It's meant intimate discussions, often with bad news. These are face-to-face discussions with family, close up and personal, and being available at all times, especially in times of extreme need by a patient, perhaps a patient whom I've never met before. This part of medical care has all changed with COVID, and this change has been very stressful and emotional for all of us. Pastoral care has many similarities to medical care, and I'm willing to guess that each of you on our panel has felt the same way as I just expressed at times during these COVID periods. So my question, or the story that I'd like for you to relate to the audience, is how have you spiritually guided your followers relative to COVID restrictions? Can you tell us a story about a particular case to demonstrate how you've been able to meet these spiritual needs and produce the kind of result that you were hoping for? So with that question, what I'll do is call on each of you, since there are four. And let me start with Rabbi Berg. Rabbi Berg?
Thanks, Dr. Jarrell. It's really an honor to be with you and with my distinguished colleagues here. God, you're really getting to the heart of the problem, right? We're at the 1-year anniversary now of COVID. And I was talking with my wife, who's also a rabbi. She actually does chaplaincy work at Hopkins Bayview. And the way in which we're probably not even processing fully what a year of this has meant for us as faith communities and as a city and as a society. It's really hard. And I would say one of the things that's been most difficult for me, you spoke about your relationship with patients as a surgeon. My relationship with my congregants, with my neighbors, has been severely limited in my ability to do pastoral work. So the bad side of that is that with the lockdown, clergy have not been able to go into nursing homes, have not been able to go into older residents' homes, have not been able to go to hospitals. I've been vaccinated. I know some of my clergy colleagues have been vaccinated. One hope is that that will begin to open up and I'll be able to safely go in and see people in person, maybe even put a hand on a shoulder or hold their hand as we share a prayer. But I will say the other side of this is there have been countless examples over the past year of ways that we've been able to lean into the technology and use it to provide a different sort of intimacy. Sometimes that's in one-on-one conversations with people. Sometimes that's even with services or Passover Seders or other kinds of activities, High Holy Day services. I'm sitting in my sanctuary right now. This is not a virtual background, it's my actual background. And most of our congregants have been tuning in through a broadcast over the past many months. I've had some reflection from people saying, Rabbi, you know, I miss being in person. I miss being able to shake people's hands. I miss being able to share a meal afterwards at a luncheon. But I also kind of, you know, I have like a front row seat to the service now. You're right there in front of me. You're not so far away. And that provides a different sort of intimacy. Is it a long-term solution? No. But have we been finding ways to make meaningful community even during this time? Yes, we have. And we've done what we needed to do to keep everyone safe.
Thank you for that, Rabbi. Reverend Dr. Felton, how would you respond to this?
I'd say ditto to the rabbi. The downside is always because we're not able to be together. I experienced that more than I think my congregation, or at least I'm more vocal in that we did, for a couple of Sundays, we had pre-recorded worship from our residents, from my home and minister of music, and I thought I would die because it just felt so lonely. And I knew exactly where the folks were coming from when they said, you know, I miss being at church. So I think it was April when everything sort of, you know, took off. Well, March, but in April we decided to close. We decided to continue in residence worship for those that were available and chose to do so. So that meant we had about 10 to 12 people in the sanctuary. So that, on one end, that was a God save for me. That was for those folks that could get there, and they were just generally people who lived in the neighborhood of the church, walking distance of the church. They were happy to be there, and that included some of our community as well. The virtual has been exceptional. Besides fighting with the technological issues, everybody likes to pull up in their favorite chair or around the coffee table or the kitchen table, and we come together. We do Bible study together. We do worship together. We do evening prayer services together. We refuse to not refuse. We continue our worship life so that we can maintain our connection. Then some of our leaders, we have a session, and we divided the congregation up in circles. And each elder, if you will, is responsible for at least once a month checking in with his or her circle. And that's meant a lot to particularly folks who don't have Zoom or who are not, they're not technologically connected to the rest of the world. So we do that. We also have, what do? We text and we do drive-bys. When the weather was good before we had winter, before winter, we would drive by, and it's amazing what you can do, even though you have to shout a little louder from the driveway to the house. But again, just being in proximate space towards one another, it connects. So we're trying to make sure that our communication stays solid. And there are many ways to get to each other, many ways to catch up with one another. And we try to use all of the ways that are possible. Folks have learned how to text that didn't know how to text before. Voicemail. We've been creative. Let's put it, we pulled ourselves into the 21st century, or we've been pushed, and we've accepted the push. I do think that because of our outreach ministries, that was the hardest part. We got hit hard because we served breakfasts on Sunday mornings and a luncheon on Saturday, the fourth Saturday. And I guess, it was about June, June, that the ministries had to come to, they were creative and being able to, we came outside, we served our meals from outside, but the deal was that folks came for the community, which happened on the inside at the fellowship hall. But so now we have bags to go, but that closing cut back on the people that we engaged. So instead of serving 100 people, we started off with, we got down to 50. So we're building back up, but trying to engage, and our engagement has been going into the neighborhood. That has been perhaps the hardest thing to do because of the safety issues and connecting.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Felton. Dr. Dowd?
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you folks. And it's really wonderful, actually. One of the things that we did as faith communities is we actually were having Thursday meetings with different faith community leaders so that we can actually steal ideas from each other. So like, what worked in your community and what did you guys do? And I actually stole a lot of the ideas from my colleagues as well on how to take care of my patient, of my colleagues and of my co-religionists, if you want to call it. This has been really tough. I mean, this has been incredibly difficult. There's no doubt about it. On the spiritual level, on the personal level, on the mental level, psychological. And one of our biggest concerns as Muslims is the religion, all of the religions that we're talking about are incredibly communal, and it's about unity, and it's about the space, it's coming together into same space, same time, and sharing something that is very sacred to all of us. So our Jum'ah prayers, which is Friday prayers, it actually cannot be accepted as a Friday prayer if people are not in the same space. So this was an incredibly challenging thing, especially for the Muslim congregants, is, well, how do you do that? For the Muslim deceased, well, they have to be washed, and we cannot cremate them. They have to be washed in a certain way, and they have to be shrouded, and therefore, how do you do that in a COVID-friendly way? Are there exceptions and whatnot? So this was incredibly difficult for us to really get together. And this happened right before our high season of Ramadan. And in Ramadan, we actually get together every night. You'll find a few hundred people, all the way from the 90 years old to the 1-month-old coming together as a community every single night for 30 nights for 2 hours, and all of a sudden you're told you cannot be together. What we did was we actually, just like all of my wonderful panelists, co-panelists, we moved to technology, and we started having Zooms. We actually started having Zoom cafes or Zoom hour, where you can just come in anytime, log in to this website, and people will, will do that. The other things that we did in most of our communities, like, the 70s and 80s drive-through movie theaters, you just come into your car. We had a big parking lot, since we had to satisfy the same space, same time. So everybody is in the parking lot, turn in your FM radio, and the preacher's in the front. And at the end of it, you just get out and, you pray and you call it a day. There were a lot of air hugs, just giving each person that. But really, our services, you really have to stand literally. The leader has to say foot to foot, shoulder to shoulder. I mean, you literally are in exactly right next to the person, to the extent that sometimes even some Muslims, when they pray, they get too close to your foot that they may step on it. You're like, a little bit, yeah, give me a little bit of space. So that's what it was before COVID. And now all of a sudden you go and there's 6 feet this way, 6 feet that way, 6 feet behind you. And actually we were more conservative, that we allowed almost 9 feet in some of the mosques, just to be on the safe side. And some people still feel that, like, I want to connect to my Lord, but I really want to have that human connection that I was missing, that hug that I got after every Friday or after the evening prayers. So for us, that was a challenge. As what has been said before, the biggest hit with a lot of this is the elderly, because they were technologically not very competent. They are not very savvy with it. And therefore, what do you do and how do you reach them? And they are the most lonely. So we actually had to make a phone tree to call them, to check on them, to do grocery shopping for them and whatnot. And for the most part in Ramadan, you come in, you open the trunk of your car, we put a meal in it, you close it, you go somewhere, you be with your family, but really separate. So it was, I would say, physically distant, but socially connected. And we tried our best. But to be honest, I think we got better at looking at the weak members of our community in that regard, because it really brought it to the surface. But at the same time, it's still not the same as being together in person.
Spectacular comments. Thank you for that. Bishop Lewandowski, how about your situation?
Very happy to be with you. Sacred Heart of Jesus in Highlandtown and St. Patrick's and Fells Point are the largest Roman Catholic Hispanic parishes in the city. And I believe that would include parts of, our congregation includes parts of Baltimore County. We just culturally, as Hispanic community, are very touchy people. And so it's been very difficult for people not to be close together. Culture defines space for a lot of us. And when we talk about 6 feet or 3 feet, or whatever it is that we want to do for social distancing, well, 6 feet in Spanish is not the same as 6 feet in English. And so it's been very difficult for people to keep social distancing and really to be apart. That has been a struggle. Early on in the pandemic, with the help and support of good institutions like Build, which is a faith-based community organization, Johns Hopkins, the Baltimore Department of Health, we were able to provide a food delivery program, which is ongoing. And so every week we deliver 1,000 meals to people who are in their homes. And that food distribution has grown into what it was COVID testing in our parking lot, which is ongoing. It's been going on for a very long time now, 11 months. And then also now with the vaccine available and all of this available for the Latino community in 21224. You might say, well, what does that have to do with faith? Well, I found very much in this time the faith health partnerships to be of great importance. So it's been key. When people are sick, the first place they go is to church. In our community, as soon as you're sick, you want to go to church for a blessing, you want to go for anointing, you want a prayer. That pastoral care is so important. In many cases in our community, we have not been able to directly provide pastoral care to those in hospital, for those affected by the virus in their homes. And that's where quick thinking nurses, doctors, medical professionals, right there in emergency rooms and at the bedside have called us and said, you know, Father Bruce, this person needs to talk to you. Father Bruce, and through Zoom and through WhatsApp, we've made those pastoral visits. And in one case, we were able to convince a gentleman who was in the emergency room to actually stay in the hospital and get treatment because he wanted to discharge himself. He wanted to leave the hospital and didn't understand that if he left there, that he would not live. That his COVID infection was so dire that he needed treatment, and that if he left the hospital, he would not have survived. And it was a quick thinking doctor in the emergency room who got him on Zoom, got us on Zoom, and we were able, with the help of his family and with the doctors, medical professions there, to convince him to stay. And he's alive and well today. It was a life-saving intervention there, in collaboration. Again, faith and health collaboration and partnerships have been life-saving for us here at Sacred Heart. And I probably would say that's one of the things I'm most grateful for during this time.
Thank you for that. That's very inspiring. I want to remind our audience that you can get questions into Alex, and we'll be asking those in a minute. I'm going to go to one other question for the group. And as you all know, the governor has loosened some of the restrictions, and we at UMB are in the process of beginning to think about how we're going to have a physical presence back on campus. Even though we've been teleworking, we've been teaching remotely, we've been doing many things remotely. And one of the things that we're hearing about return to campuses is that people are uncomfortable returning. In fact, people have gotten uncomfortable being around other people and have obviously gotten to feel safe when they're in their house, sequestered away by themselves. And so I'm going to call this reentry anxiety, and I'm sure there's a technical name for it, but that's close enough for me. And believe it or not, of course, you know, these are people, co-workers with them here at UMB that they've been with for years. They're good friends. They know their family. Everything about them is that they're good friends. And in fact, I know that some of our people may even be anxious about leaving their own home, let alone going back to a group of people. Now, I don't need to tell you all that the very important religious holidays are coming up in the next several weeks. And you've got Ramadan, Easter, Passover, and I'm sure there are many others coming along. So maybe my question to each of you is what are you planning to do for these observances? And do you anticipate and have a plan? By the way, I'd like to learn, do you have a plan for how you're going to get your parishioners, your congregants to get comfortable with coming back, being with people again, since we've been away so long? So Dr. Daoud, why don't I begin my question to you?
Sorry, I was muted. This is a really interesting question you bring, doctors, because what happens is, again, our parishioners, our congregants, they will have to be literally next to each other. And how do you resolve somebody that you don't even, sometimes people may not even know each other, and they're just passing by from a completely different community. They just come in, they stand right next to you, shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot, and they're like, what do I do here? And who's this person? So we're not even talking about people that you're comfortable with and you know it on day to day. It could be a complete stranger who's right next to you, worshiping the same God, hopefully having the same heart as you do, but personally, you don't really have a connection with them from a personal perspective. I think we've been very conservative. We've actually been much more conservative than what the state says. So when the state says 6 feet, we're doing 9 feet. When the state says okay, you know, like a 25 people, we're actually going a little bit less so far. And the community, for the most part, has been actually incredibly receptive. To be honest, more receptive than I thought them that they would be. I think part of it is because when you actually understand the purpose of Sharia, as we call it, the Islamic code of ethics and law, the number one criteria is the preservation of the human life. So anything that harms you or harms other is not allowed. And therefore, that has been inculcated into the religion for so many centuries that when you say, look, I don't want you to hurt others, we need to be responsible, because if this person gets sick or dies because of you, you are responsible. And therefore, a lot of people take that really seriously. And you have to balance the spiritual need and the preservation of life, because the second item of Sharia law is going to be preservation of the religion, of the faith of somebody. So you have to have the priority, which is preserve life and then preserve religion. And most people understand that. We have zealots, as everywhere else. People go like, I'm going to go to the mosque no matter what, COVID, shmovid, whatever, I am going to make it. I mean, literally, there are people who would come and pray at the door of the mosque and they are not let in just because they feel I need that space. Now, for us as Muslims, God is very ethereal. It's metaphysical. He does not belong to the metaphysical realm that we have. And therefore, the whole earth is supposed to be a mosque you can pray in. So the space is not as central to us that you can pray anywhere. But to coordinate the congregants, that is going to be a really big issue, because it's not one prayer. It's every single day, 2 or 3 time prayer. And how do you manage 400 or 500 people at a time? I don't think we're going to go to that. Very likely we may rent actually bigger space, and we would go to a bigger hall and keep things organized. For example, for our Eid prayer, which is our festival, you would expect about 1,000 people, 2,000 people. So what you do is you go to a convention center and you organize that and you keep people's space. So what we did is keep the size, keep the congregation size, increase the space size, possibly.
Gotcha. That's a pretty interesting approach. Bishop Lewandowski?
We have had in-person worship since May. Most of that through the summer was outdoors in nice weather. We have a very large parking lot, and we were able to have 6 services in Spanish to allow for distancing and allow for people to come and feel comfortable and not feel crowded. When the weather changed, we did move indoors, and it took a lot of skill and ability to measure out the benches and make sure that everybody could be distanced socially. We still get complaints once in a while. Somebody will call and said, people sat too close to me in church. But going ahead now, we've been at 25% capacity. It will be a challenge to increase that just for the size of our church. Our church can seat 800. It would be very difficult for us to go to 100% and have social distancing. So the multiplication of services is how we handle that. So right now we're at 6. We're estimating we may have to go up to 8 or 10 services on a weekend to be able to accommodate more people, as people want to come back, especially during the holy days. One of the beautiful traditions of the Catholic Church are processions, and during Holy Week, we have a lot of processions, and those are usually outdoors. And so I imagine that this year, those processions will probably be in cars, and people following the processions, distancing on sidewalks. It'll be a challenge, but again, it involves a lot of coordination, good organization, a lot of people thinking creatively, pushing the limits of our creativity, and helping people connect with the Lord. It's what they want, a connection with each other and with the Lord. The last thing I'll say is the celebration of the sacraments is most difficult because it involves the laying on of hands. It involves anointings. It involves baptism with water. And there's a lot of closeness involved. And Ash Wednesday was not Ash Wednesday for a lot of people because they wanted the ashes on their head and across and not sprinkled. So that they want the oil, they want the water. So that's a bigger challenge when we're using cotton and applicators and things like that that just don't fill the bill. So we're still working creatively to see how we can help people really feel the sacraments and the effect of the sacraments with what we use with water, oil, and the imposition of hands. It's going to be a challenge, but I think we're up to it.
Look what this little tiny virus has done to us. It's really something. We have questions rolling in, so I'm going to ask Reverend Felton and Rabbi Berg to answer first, and then we'll get to the questions. So, Reverend Felton?
When we think, as we plan for the High Holy Days, and just worship as the weather changes, means a lot to us. We don't have a large parking lot, but what we're inviting the folks to do is to come for an outside worship. We're planning to make it, we have a cul-de-sac, which helps us, at least we've got some lawn space, and to socially distance, but that we would hold worship outside. Where there are things like the rituals that we celebrate, for instance, the foot washing and the distribution of palms and a parade and all of that good stuff. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to do that. It's the same issue that Bishop Lewandowski talked about as far as the ashes were concerned. And then communion is the other piece, though we have little, we have the self-contained element that can be shared with everybody. People still are, not say hesitant, they just don't do it when they're alone. Well, they're at home. They want, to be together. So we're talking about we're praying that the weather stays good and that we can do this outside. And for those that want to return. And then we've become our own little information center. We send out information that we collect from CDC, from our presbytery, from every source that we feel will feed the folk and combat some of the fake news and the suspicions and the uneasiness. So the more we talk, we've tried to create conversations where people can talk about their fears, their triumphs. We've had some deaths, so we have some circles where people can come together. Again, these are all virtual, where they can talk about their feelings. They can walk through their grief with one another, at least via Zoom and Facebooks. Each Sunday after worship, it's a little bit like Babel, but after worship, after the benediction, we open up all the mics and they have a chance to talk to one another face to face. And it sounds definitely a cacophony of great noise, but it brings great pleasure. And again, it reinforces their connectedness as a community. We've been trying to work on a town hall, which then allows us to reach out to our neighbors in the community so that they can have a place to come and also not just listen, but voice where they are and what their challenges are, where their interest lies, what it is that they want and or need. So we're trying to create that atmosphere slowly but surely. And what we've advertised to everybody, well, not advertised, but we've shared, we spent 3 months deep cleaning our community, deep cleaning the building so that, folks would get in. We were trying to bring that sanitizing element to our caution so that they would feel comfortable. And then we prepared with the PPE, the personal protection equipment, that you can take your temperature. We got gloves for you, got masks for you. We have snacks for you. We have everything that we could possibly think of that would, not only keep you safe, but also let you know what's going on with yourself and what's going on with everybody else, so that we don't, so that we can build, if you will, a safe community. both physically and emotionally. So,
Terrific.
yeah, those kinds of things. It takes a lot. It's a lot of effort on. We have a small team of volunteers, but we're a small church. But that small team of volunteers, they do things like deliver communion. They do things like, yes, they do go and visit our sick and shut in. I mean, we've got masks of all kinds and shapes and sizes, gloves of all colors, and we do as best as we can. But we try. We do push the limits. We don't, we do go, we make, if I make a hospital visit, again, I follow the hospital's rules, but I am making more of those visits as time goes on. And that's been real helpful for a lot of folks because hospitalized and they don't even they're not able to be even with their family. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm sure it's helped a lot. Thank you for that. Rabbi Berg, and then we'll go to questions.
As we think about reopening, we also, like several of my colleagues here, have been drawing on some of our past experiences throughout the year. So the good news is that we have been able to do things in person as well already. Some of those were, as has been said, outdoor gatherings. We anticipate doing more of those this coming summer. We have a tradition of services in Druid Hill Park. We usually do 2 per summer. This year, we're thinking maybe we'll do 4. We had a bike ride on Sukkot, which is the Jewish fall harvest festival that in the Christian tradition is equated with the Feast of Tabernacles, I believe. So we went and met in Mount Washington and rode bikes, a few dozen of us, down the new Jones Falls Trail all the way down to Reservoir Hill, our neighborhood. And then we met outdoors and we had a worship service, Sukkot service. A little sukkah was erected on the shared community space on the South Lots on White Lock Street across from the community farm. And that was wonderful to be able to sort of be proximate to our neighbors, to be outdoors, distance with masks, but also to be able to stand on ground which had been places where Jewish shops were 100 years ago in this neighborhood, and since then shops serving the predominantly African American community in Reservoir Hill, and since then now a verdant kind of a green gathering space in the center of our neighborhood. So we've had a number of other kinds of things that we've had to adapt to and that we're looking for differently. So, we don't just do services. When we do services, we've had mostly virtual, though we've had small gatherings in the sanctuary here. You might be able to see behind me, there's plexiglass on the bima. We have been able to have people in this space for 10, 20, 30 people spread out in our 1,200 seat sanctuary wearing masks. We anticipate being able to have more people. We're actually talking about maybe after Passover having folks come into the space who have been vaccinated and having certain services only for those who have actually received their full vaccination, and then other ones that would require a different level of safety, like for a bar or bat mitzvah, where we might allow other people, but again, distance in a different sort of way. Similar to Dr. Dawood was talking about with the Muslim community, we also require a certain proximity. For us, it's not about physical proximity, it's about being within the same space, right? Breathing the same air. So we call that a minyan. That's a quorum, not M-I-N-I-O-N, M-I-N-Y-A-N is how we usually write it, right? A minyan or a minyan is 10 Jews in order to say certain prayers in our service, like the Kaddish prayer, for example, the memorial prayer. But we can do that even if we're 30 feet apart, as long as we're under the same roof. And so we've found ways to do that. We've also been a little more expansive in our understanding. Sharia in Judaism is called halakha. So our legal tradition allows for certain kinds of things and certain flexibility. So I think for us, the big question is going to be also, what are the things that we hold on to as we reopen, and what are the things that we let go of? And the last thing I'll say is to this question of that you brought up of how people are nervous about coming back. I certainly understand that, and none of us should sit in judgment of any other person who is not ready to be physically proximate to others, to take off their mask and shake hands and give hugs and kisses. We're all going to have to make that decision in our own time, hopefully by following the advice of epidemiologists who are telling us when the right and safe times to do that are. And having said that, we human beings have been around for a long time. We are at our core social beings. Each of our faith traditions uplifts the social fabric of communities and celebrates that. We thrive on being proximate to one another. We thrive on being able to touch one another, right? Why is it that being in isolation, right, being in solitary confinement is the very worst punishment that a person in prison can receive? Why is it that many of us have argued that it's even an inhumane punishment and should be banned? Because to remove someone from other human beings is a cruel thing. And so when we're ready, when it's safe, my sincere hope is that we will find ways to re-engage with one another physically and to be able to share voices and harmonize with each other and to break bread together and enjoy meals together. All of these things are central to who we are as human beings. And if we don't find a way to get past our anxiety about those things, we will have lost something, not simply as members of a particular religious tradition, but as members of the human race.
I think you're right on that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Alex, you got some questions?
Oh, we do. Something that we wrestle with at the university a lot is the idea of, not just developing vaccines, but making sure people get them and trying to overcome the concerns that they have. I want to bring in Emily Smith, who has a question about that. Emily, go ahead.
Hi, yes. I was wondering what you all think about how faith communities can play a role in promoting your congregants to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. I know there can be a variety of different concerns surrounding this issue, so I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you. Why don't we start with Dr. Daoud?
Well, as a physician and understanding the science, this is sort of interesting of intersecting the spirituality and the science of it. Really, as I said, one of the issues for us as Muslims is the fact that preserving the human life is the utmost important thing that you can do, and therefore we really try to get it. To be honest, we actually within the Muslim community, as of yet, we do not have issues convincing people getting the vaccine. As a matter of fact, a lot of our congregants are actually eager to get the vaccine so that they can get together so that we can celebrate, our shared connectedness. We, as a matter of fact, in the past, we have done a lot of free healthcare clinics, blood drives and all kinds of things that our religion emphasizes within our religious space. And we probably will be holding vaccine sites. The Muslim community here is actually 3 different communities, if you want to call it. There are refugees, there are the native indigent or Black brothers and sisters, and then there are the immigrants like myself. And a lot of the immigrants are actually slightly overrepresented in the medical community, and therefore we have tons of doctors in this area who are more than willing to actually volunteer to give these vaccines. Not only doctors, but a lot of healthcare providers and professionals. So for us, it's really going to be an issue of how we're going to be able to accommodate the people who are interested in doing it. It's not a philosophical or a spiritual question of what's the origin of this vaccine and whatnot, because warding off harm actually precedes everything else in the faith. So therefore, if there is a harm that is about to come to the community, everybody has to come in and basically ward it. And the last thing, there's a very basic thing in our theology, which is necessities make the prohibited allowed. So if there is an absolute necessity, a medical necessity, whatever it is, even if it means as a Muslim, let's say pork is not allowed for Muslims, alcohol is not allowed. But if there is a medicine that contains alcohol and I don't have alternatives, then I will take it as a Muslim. If there's some pork product in something that is life-saving and pork is the only thing there is to eat, I will eat it to preserve my life. And these are the exceptions that we have as part of our religion. And therefore, I think the biggest issue for us is actually coordinating it fast enough, because I literally have WhatsApp groups, people, as a physician in the community and as a little bit of a religious leader, people are like, where am I going to get my vaccine? Can I get my vaccine? Where do I receive it? So that's the issue that is going to be for us. And I would like to give my co-panelists the opportunity to see what they have been doing. But for our mosques, we have already identified people, we have identified providers, volunteers, we have provided possible sites. We're in communication actually with the authorities if they do want to have a site as well as volunteers. We have phone calling trees, we have memberships, so we have people to basically who to sign up so that we can facilitate it. When we do the free healthcare clinics, it's open to actually everyone, and believe it or not, most of the beneficiaries are actually non-Muslim. So they come, they get the food, they get the free healthcare clinic, they get all of these things, which is fantastic. And it's really, it helps us and allows us to feel part of the larger community, especially as a minority in this area. And I believe that we will be doing the same exact thing for the vaccines, that it will be, we don't restrict it necessarily to our congregants.
Reverend Dr. Felton?
We are in the same, I think we're all in the same vein, making sure that that the resource is made available to the populace. Our congregation is small, and we are, I would say 80% of 80% of our membership has not, if it's not been vaccinated, they're planning on, and they're making sure that they get their appointments. Our biggest issue is that we know that our church, we live in a neighborhood that is both distressed and also leery of vaccines and or the response to the pandemic. Just as they were leery of being tested, they're very leery about being vaccinated. So we find that our biggest issue right now is to make sure that we are able to lift the veil and minimize the anxiety by hopefully getting into engaging them in ways that say, engaging them so that they can know that the resource is there, that it is safe to them, but give them an opportunity to vocalize their hesitance. And in our conversation, in our prayers, and our just being together or engaging them, we're able to bring to them a new light that says it really is not an unsafe thing, that you can trust. We've done this. We did this when we set up a mobile testing site with the University of Maryland. That went over like syrup on pancakes. It was good. At first, the people were very, the folk were hesitant. What is this all about? Who is it? Which hospital is it? Who's going to be testing us? Can we really trust? Do you trust these people? So we put ourselves in a place that says, we trust the health institution that we partner with. We trust that this vaccine can be helpful. We know that there's some side effects. We know that you're going to be impacted, but it's not that different from taking a flu shot in the sense that, there's some effects. But here it is. We set ourselves up as the bridge, between the health institution and the people, so that we could foster relationships that were beneficial to both, but that we would calm some of their fears. So that's been good for us, in the sense that folks have to engage each other, not through a text, not through something as impersonal as a Zoom, but face to face, and doing that and staying safe and winning people's trust, which happens, on the street. And that's what we do. We go on the street, we go to places where people congregate, and at the subway station at Penn and Pennsylvania and North, and we're there with leaflets. We're there to have conversations. We're even there we'll walk you to the station. So we're hoping that we're able to maybe convince or have a partner that will help us set up a mobile station within our community. If not at Madison, at least someplace that is central and that the folks will trust. And then we're out there beating the bushes, if you will. come and get your vaccination. It's going to be helpful to you. We're between two elementary and middle schools. So it's important that as we talk about our children going back to school, we want to make sure that not only are they covered, but that their parents, their grandparents, everybody that's in the house has an opportunity to be covered. So that has been that is our challenge, but that's our task for the next whatever 3 months. We're starting with this Saturday. There is a survey that we put together that sister churches are working on, and we're going into the neighborhood to again build that rapport and engage our neighbors around this, so that it has a face to it. And we found that when you put a face to it, or when you put a relationship to it, people have a tendency to be less anxious and trust. And
Gotcha.
that's what we do.
Gotcha. Alex, we probably have time for another question for Rabbi Berg and Bishop Lewandowski.
All right. Well, we have Arif Hussein who wants to say something. Arif, are you
Okay.
there? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm an oncologist at University of Maryland. Essentially spent all my career here, and Dr. Jarrell's my mentor and, a friend and colleague, but that's and Yasin and I go back many, many years. We're neighbors and dear friends. What I wanted to say is just hearing all the incredible people here talking about bringing in, our faiths, the common bond and the common kinship we all share. And the theme here is that we're all on the same page. In other words, you follow the guidelines, and we all want to protect each other. What is really missing is how come there's this incredible disconnect between what we are saying, what the faith leaders are saying, what the leaders of our community are saying, and which apparently people are following, the congregants, and what you see politically. That there has been this incredible disconnect to the detriment of people's lives, that why it is such become a political statement. So this is what it tells you, is how easy it is to brainwash people. And what is the purpose of that? For what end? And that's the sad part. And there was just a message sent out this morning in Pakistan. Almost 50% of people are not willing to get vaccinated, by the way. This just came out this morning in one of the emails we shared on WhatsApp, because of the distrust. And so this is in Pakistan. But speaking of in the US, of course, there is some distrust in the communities as well. So that's the tragedy. Here we're talking about that from a religious point of view, faith point of view, we're all on the same page, but somehow it's not connecting at a political level, and which has led to incredible, incredible harm.
Thank you for that, Dr. Hussein. Bishop Lewandowski or Rabbi Berg, would you like to comment on that?
I mean, I guess what I would say, I'm not a politician, I just know a few. I guess what I would say is that there are legitimate reasons why certain communities distrust government. And those things are deep and they go back generations. And unfortunately, sometimes that distrust can be mobilized and even weaponized to create greater harm in our societies. I think we saw that in the previous administration, in the way that mask wearing was politicized. And I do think it's going to take more messaging like this, more people beginning to sort of lean into our better angels, to borrow from a different faith tradition, to think about our responsibility to our fellow human beings. And right now, I think a lot of the focus, right, in America at least, I can't speak to Pakistan, but in America where I live, a lot of the focus is on me, right? How do I take care of myself? How do I take care of my closest family? at the expense of others. And what we learn living through a pandemic is that viruses do not know borders, they don't know race. They may affect us differently by age and health condition, but the virus really doesn't discriminate. And the only way that we're going to continue to move forward through this pandemic, and I would say move forward as a society, is to re-engage with some of the core teachings of our respective traditions, that we are a community, that human beings are created in the image of the divine, and that means that each one of us has intrinsic and infinite value, that human life is sacrosanct. In our tradition, we say if you save a life, it's as if you've saved the entire world. And that's because not only does that person have infinite value, but that person with the capacity to have future generations of children, it really can be unending in their impact in the universe. So yes, it's true that people are scared, and fear has a kind of claustrophobic way of allowing us to think in more insular ways. And we do have to sort of open ourselves up to our fellow human beings. But that's why religion can be helpful, is to push back against some of those, some of the worst sort of othering and a greater consideration of our responsibilities to one another.
Thank you for that. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure we've given Bishop Lewandowski enough time to comment on any of these topics. Any other things you'd like to comment on?
Just emphasize, we do anyway, the compatibility of faith and science. And it really is very important in our times to do that because of mistrust, because of the politicization of religion and science. It's to reclaim our ground and really turn up the volume on the message that we have as community leaders and faith leaders. I know in the Christian and Catholic tradition, there is strong opposition in many sectors of our country to vaccination. But when you look at science and you follow the science, and you're very careful to explain the science and understanding science as a gift from God, Pope Francis has said it's an act of charity to get the vaccine, because you're actually helping your neighbor. And how important it is in the story of the Good Samaritan to help the neighbor, to be with your neighbor, and to be concerned about the other. And so my point in all of the conversations surrounding the vaccine and the moral choices that we're given in our times is to look to Scripture, look to our faith tradition, and be open to what it teaches us and challenges us to do. And what it says is to love the other, love your neighbor as yourself.
Wow. Powerful comments from you, from all of our panelists, from Dr. Hussein. I liked those comments a lot. So I want to take this moment, first of all, to thank our panelists. I wish we had more time. We just don't have enough time for this, but thank you for giving us a few moments of your time. Thank you for your thoughts. For those in the audience, again, thank you for being with us. I'll see you again in a week or two. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Good.